Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of Starlink 9-1 mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base, Space Launch Complex 4 East from the West Coast. We hope you all are doing fine. Now we are awaiting for a Falcon liftoff at 11:40 p.m. Eastern Time from California for a southeasterly launch for SpaceX Starlink mission. The Starlink mission 9-1 will launch 20 Starlink satellites, including 13 with direct-to-cell capabilities satellites to low Earth orbit. Today's Starlink mission marks SpaceX's amazing 356th overall launch. Hello, my name is Dipta Maitra, performing the commentary for today's mission launch, and we are super excited bringing you the coverage of SpaceX 63rd overall launch and the 61st launch of Falcon 9 of this year. This will be the 44th dedicated Starlink mission of the year for SpaceX. Prior to today's launch, SpaceX has launched 965 Starlink satellites so far over 43 flights this year, and overall 6,613 Starlink satellites to date. Now, before getting into the mission details, just some quick updates. Teams from NASA and Boeing Space are targeting not earlier than on June 25th at 10:10 p.m. Eastern Time for the undocking of the Starliner spacecraft from space station and landing early on June 26th at White Sands Space Harbor in New Mexico. Another update that US ISS Spacewalk 90 will now be performed by NASA astronauts Tracy Dyson and Mike Barrett, which was previously scheduled with Matt Dominic. Now he is being replaced by Mike Barrett, and the event will occur on June 24th. Now, just a heads up, it's me running the show for our launches. So if we hit any technical issues, hang tight, but nothing to worry. I will do my best to walk you through the Falcon 9 rocket launch happening in upcoming minutes. Now let's get back to today's mission. So far, SpaceX reports that the weather is looking good for today's Falcon 9 launch opportunity and the range is ready to support. We hope that they are able to launch on time and not have to push too far. But if for some reason we don't have the launch today, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow, that is Thursday, June 19th, with launch window opening at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time. SpaceX is currently targeting a liftoff time of Falcon 9 from Vandenberg Space Force Base at 11:40 p.m. Eastern Time, which will be 8:40 p.m. Pacific Time, both on Tuesday, that is June 18th, and 3:40 a.m. UTC on Wednesday, that is June 19th. Firstly, we would like to thank all of you joining us for today's launch and would request that if you haven't already, please like this video to help YouTube's algorithm bring in more space fans and rocket enthusiasts. Now let's take a look at today's payload details for Starlink Group 9-1 mission. This launch marks the 44th dedicated Starlink launch for this year. Two quick fun facts for you guys. The first launch of 21 Starlink version 2 mini satellites, also known as Starlink Group 6-1, took place from Space Launch Complex 40, Cape Canaveral, Florida on February 27, 2023. Another one that at the inception, the two identical Starlink test satellites called Microsat 2A and Microsat 2B were launched on 22nd February 2018. Upon orbital deployment, they were renamed to Tintin A and Tintin B. So Tintin A and Tintin B are the first ever Starlink satellites to be launched. Starlink satellites are built at SpaceX Satellite Development Facility in Redmond, Washington. Today's launch consists of 20 version 2 mini satellites, including 13 with direct-to-cell capabilities. The version 2 variant of Starlink is too large to fit inside a Falcon 9 fairing and is meant to be launched by Starship. SpaceX modified the original version 2 blueprint into a smaller, more compact one and named it version 2 mini for this reason. SpaceX also indicated they would build satellites of second generation constellation in two different but technically identical form factors. One with the physical structures tailored to launch on Falcon 9, that is version 2 mini, and another tailored for the launch on Starships, that is version 2. Each Starlink satellite is equipped with powerful 5 advanced Ku band phased array antennas and 3 dual band parabolic antennas which utilizes Ka and E bands to provide increased capacity. These antennas utilizes altogether Ku, Ka and E band frequencies, allowing Starlink to provide high band connectivity, that is 4 times more capacity per satellite than earlier versions. Each satellite features a dual solar array with a size of 52.5 square meters, which unfurls to a wingspan of 100 feet. Also, it has a high capacity battery to provide power to the payloads. The two solar arrays are also aeroneutral, which enable faster on-orbit maneuvers. Each Starlink satellite contains 3 space laser transponders, that is optical intersatellite links or ISLs, for intercommunications, operating at up to 200 Gbps, which together across the constellation form a global internet mesh that can connect customers anywhere in the world. Also, this enables the spacecraft to transmit data without local ground stations, providing truly global coverage. Each Starlink version 2 mini satellite weighs nearly 800 kilograms, that is 1,763 pounds. Starlink satellites are equipped with effective ion Hall effect thrusters powered by argon, which enables Starlink satellites to orbit race, maneuver in space, and deorbit at the end of their useful life. Starlink is the first Krypton-propelled spacecraft ever flown. Later, switched to argon Hall effect thrusters for cost effectiveness. Also, upon switching to argon, Starlink is the first argon-propelled spacecraft ever flown in space. Now, relative to Krypton, the argon required to fuel Starlink version 2 satellites will be practically free. To put it into perspective, fueling its next constellation of almost 30,000 version 2 satellites could cost SpaceX less than fueling 4,000 version 1 satellites, which were based on Krypton. Also, SpaceX claims that its second generation thruster using argon has 2.4 times the thrust and 1.5 times the specific impulse of the previously Krypton fuel thruster. Today's payload will be placed in an orbit with an altitude of 295 kilometers and with an inclination and with an inclination of 53.16 degrees. But this configuration does not apply to every Starlink satellite. Starlink satellites are placed in different configurations based on their group. Starlink uses custom-built navigation sensors named Star Tracker that survey the stars to determine each satellite's location, altitude, and orientation for best possible broadband throughput. Each Starlink satellite contains 4 reaction wheels, providing agile attitude control for the vehicle. The hot spare configuration ensures high reliability operation, and its aluminum flywheel is fully demisable at the end of life. Also worth mentioning, the Starlink satellites are equipped with an autonomous collision avoidance system for avoiding collisions with other spacecraft and space junks autonomously, which utilizes the US Department of Defense debris tracking database. While speaking of SpaceX direct-to-cell Starlink satellites, direct-to-cell is a technology developed by Starlink team. In easy words, it's like having a cell phone tower in space. This technology allows your cell phone to connect directly to satellites. Now imagine you are in a remote area where there is no cell tower nearby. Normally you won't get any signal on your phone, right? But with direct to cell, your phone can get a signal directly from a Starlink satellite overhead. You don't need to make any changes to your existing LTE phones or download any special apps. It's designed to work with common LTE standards. Whether you are on land, lakes, coastal waters, and now even on air, as long as you can see the sky, you can get a signal. It provides security in remote regions, giving you peace of mind when you need it most. Now recently Starlink achieved its first video call on X through Starlink direct-to-cell satellites from unmodified mobile phones. Previously, we saw textual communications using Starlink direct-to-cell satellites. Starlink is expecting to go live with T-Mobile later this year. Now, with the recent inclusion of Sierra Leone, Let's take a look at the countries where Starlink's low latency high speed internet is now available. With the inclusion of Sierra Leone, now Starlink is catering 100 and territories with its low latency high speed internet connectivity. Now, if you are feeling we are adding any value to your viewing experience, please consider giving this video a like, which really helps YouTube's algorithm to bring in more space fans and people to find out this stream. Also, it does really inspires us. It will be so kind of you if you consider subscribing to us as we strive hard to bring streams filled with stats and details. And we would be super grateful for your support. Now let's move on. Let's go through a quick comparison of latency between Starlink and geostationary satellites. Earlier we had an update that Starlink achieved a new internal median latency record of 28 milliseconds. Also now they have goal of median latency for Starlink internet in the US to get below 20 milliseconds. So you know the internet that comes from satellites, most of the time it's from a single satellite that's orbiting about 35,786 kilometers from Earth. As because it is so far, the time it takes for the data to go back and forth, what we call latency, is pretty high. This makes it tough to do things like streaming movies, playing online games, and making video calls. Now let's talk about Starlink. It's like a big team of thousands of satellites that are much closer to us, just about 550 kilometers from Earth. They are all over the place, covering the whole globe. And because they are closer, the latency is way lower. To put it into perspective, think of 25 milliseconds of latency compared to 600 plus milliseconds of latency. You can see on your screen what is the number of round trips in case of Starlink satellites compared to a geostationary satellite. That's a huge difference. So in simple terms, Starlink's lower orbit makes it a game changer for satellite internet. This could mean smoother video calls, lag-free online gaming, and other activities that requires a lot of data in real time. Moving on, let's learn a bit about Starlink's collision avoidance system. It's quite fascinating to know how, despite having so many satellites around the Earth, they manage to stay safe and avoid collisions. So just learn about it a little bit, not digging so deep. So SpaceX designs the Starlink satellites orbit raising and orbit lowering reference trajectories with a time optimal path planning algorithm. The algorithm includes additional constraints to ensure that the Starlink satellites always remain at a large and safe distance from space stations, other spacecraft, space junks, and from other Starlink satellites as well under nominal circumstances. As an additional safety measure, Starlink's screening system constantly monitors the satellite's planned reference trajectories against the stations, other spacecrafts, and other Starlink satellites. The system alerts the Starlink operators immediately when a potential conjunction is detected and reference trajectories are replanned to change the geometry of the encounter and avoid the conjunction. Each Starlink launch typically includes enough satellites to fill several orbital planes. For this reason, a train of satellite is usually divided into smaller trains that depart from parking orbit on different dates to target specific orbital planes, which is also a part of pre-planned conjunction avoidance. The technique for avoiding conjunction at the planning stages are an additional precaution in addition to Starlink's onboard collision avoidance system. In this context, conjunction avoidance during planning refers to designing trajectories that maintain satellites far away from space station under nominal circumstances. Deconflicting trajectories at the planning stage requires predicting potential conjunctions several weeks into the future, which naturally limits the accuracy of the results. As part of SpaceX's multi-tiered approach to space safety, Starlink's automatic collision avoidance system allows satellites to plan maneuvers to minimize the collision probability during close approaches that could not be avoided when planning. Now, before moving on, would like to welcome our one of the most old friend and supporter, Fairmate. Good morning and welcome. I hope your back is good and you are doing well. We did miss you in the previous stream, but thanks for joining us today. Hope you will be enjoying the stream. Now let's take a look at the flight record for booster supporting today's Starlink mission. The booster with tail number 1082 supporting today's mission is quite a young booster with 4 previous flights in its record, including missions like USSF 62 and 3 Starlink missions. The last Starlink mission this booster supported was Starlink Group 8-2 mission back on 10th May 2024. And if you notice, all these missions are being launched from here only at Vandenberg Space Force Base. So far, all these 4 missions this booster supported, all from Space Launch Complex 4 East. Now, previously with Starlink Group 6-59 launch on May 17th from Cape Canaveral, SpaceX achieved a record. For the first time, a Falcon booster with tail number 1062 launched for record-breaking 21st time. Just with the recent Group 8-8 mission, the supporting booster 1061 also had 21 flights as a milestone. So currently boosters with tail number 1062 and 1061 are having 21 flights so far, and other boosters with tail number 1060 and 1067 are having 20 launches so far as their milestones, and they are waiting to reach their record-breaking milestone soon. Now let's have a look at the bar graphs here. We are depicting Falcon 9 launches per year. So before today's launch, and guys, I want to mention something. You might be hearing a beep coming up in between. Please ignore that. We are having some weather issues and I'm running on UPS to so that to stream this live stream. So please ignore that. It will be getting resolved in some minutes, but if it is persisting, please bear with that, and I'm sorry about that also. Now let's have a look at the bar graph. So before today's launch, SpaceX completed 60 launches of Falcon 9 so far this year as part of its milestone, with recent Starlink Group 8-88 mission launched from here at Space Launch Complex 4 East back on June 8th. SpaceX hit a big milestone this year's 50th launch with previous Starlink 8-7 mission. That's just two more than half of last year's Falcon 9 launches, which totaled 48. Now with the last Starlink mission launch, they have 12 more launches than half of total launches made last year. This year's count already surpasses the total number of Falcon 9 launches from all the years leading up to year 2021, and they are now getting equal to launches made in 2022, with only one launch to go, and that will be happening in just a couple of minutes. Now with today's launch of Starlink Group 9-1 mission, the bar graph depicts 61 Falcon 9 launches so far this year, which makes it the same number of launches as in 2022. They have already done more than half as many launches as they did all of last year. And it's only been 5 months and 18 days. If you keep up with this pace, they are on their mighty way to hit the ambitious goal of 140 to 148 launch by the end of this year. SpaceX is really pushing hard to achieve their big goals. Also, we just witnessed the 4th integrated flight test of Starship on June 6th, which was quite a successful launch till now, and now we are awaiting the 5th one tentatively towards the end of June or early July. As we move through the countdown, we just want to say thanks to everyone joining us live. We really appreciate you being here. Big thanks to our amazing YouTube community for being here today. We are truly thankful for every one of you on this live stream. Now let's go ahead as we progress through the countdown and review the milestones that lie ahead for us on this Cape Canaveral flight. At T-minus 38 minutes, countdown begins at this point when SpaceX launch director gives the go for the start of propellant load. If everything looks fine, prop load begins at T-minus 30 minutes mark with the loading of rocket grade kerosene or RP1 on board the first and second stages of Falcon 9 rocket. At the same time, LOX load, that is super chilled liquid oxygen, is loaded on board the first stage. Then at T-minus 16 minutes, which will be the next event that we are looking for here, that's when the second stage liquid oxygen load begins. And at T-minus 7 minutes, that's when the chill down of 9 Merlin engines gets underway, which involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps that helps protect the engines from risk of thermal shock and damages during the startup sequence. About 6 minutes before liftoff, the first stage kerosene tank should be full, and in a T-minus 4 and a half minutes, the strong back retract sequence begins. The process begins with the clamp arms underneath the payload fairing opening up, followed by the transport erector or the strong back reclining about 13 degrees of the Falcon 9. As it is a Vandenberg launch, so we will be reclining the strong back 13 degrees. But we recline the strong back a degree and a half in both Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center flights. At T-3 minutes mark, the first stage liquid oxygen loading should be complete, followed by the second stage liquid oxygen loading wrapping up at T-2 minutes mark. At that point, Falcon 9 rocket is fully fueled with 1 million pounds of propellant. At T-1 minute mark, the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. And in the final 60 seconds of countdown, the control of flight system, that is launch sequence, is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. If everything looks good, at T-45 seconds mark, the SpaceX launch director will give final go for the Falcon 9 liftoff. Now at T-3 seconds, the engine ignition sequence start command being issued by onboard engine controller. Finally, at T0, we will have liftoff. If all 9 Merlin 1D engines ignite and are healthy, flight computers will give command for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9. Currently, SpaceX is targeting a liftoff time of Falcon 9 from Vandenberg Space Force Base at 11:40 p.m. Eastern Time, which will be 8:40 p.m. Pacific Time, both on Tuesday, that is June 18th, and 3:40 a.m. UTC on Wednesday, that is on June 19th. Let's go ahead and briefly step through the trajectory for today's Starlink mission. Falcon 9 leaving the pad from Space Launch Complex 4 East from Vandenberg Space Force Base with the spacecraft on board the batch of 20 Starlink satellites, 13 with direct-to-cell capability Starlink satellites as well, for a southeast trajectory along the coast of Southern California, heading into a low Earth orbit, that is to the second generation 9th shell, indicated by that green line on your screen. The red line you see indicates where Falcon 9 first stage will land after stage separation, just a little later, leaving California's coast. This is going to be the land landing, that is a drone ship landing using autonomous spaceport drone ship. And it's of course I Still Love You supporting today's mission here on the West Coast. Estimated booster recovery is approximately 672 kilometers, with estimated fairing recovery approximately 703 kilometers downrange. And the stage 2 debris re-entry will be in East Pacific. Currently, there are 3 in SpaceX drone ship fleet. We anticipate the addition of a 4th drone ship, possibly occurring late this year or in early next year. Out of 3, just read the instructions. A short follow-up Gravitas are based in Florida, and another, of course, I Still Love You, is based here at California. Now, speaking of fairing recovery, the 2 halves of the payload fairing will be recovered slightly farther downrange from where the first stage lands on the drone ship, after they will smoothly splash down with the guidance of parachutes. SpaceX will utilize a recovery vessel to retrieve them from Atlantic waters. SpaceX manufactures the fairing in-house with the total cost of two halves is nearly $6 million. So it's of no wonder that SpaceX aims to recover the fairing for repetitive use, mirroring their approach with rocket boosters, upholding the motto of reusability and sustainability. You can see on your screen how a fairing recovery looks like. Although the recovery vessel on your screen you are watching is Doug, that is based in the Atlantic, but today's supporting recovery vessel here at Pacific is Go Beyond. For the upcoming SES Astra 1P mission, which got scrubbed today, the supporting fairing recovery vessel will be Bob. SpaceX has renamed its two new recovery ships Bob and Doug after Bob Bacon and Doug Hurley, the two NASA astronauts and the first crew SpaceX launched for NASA on the commercial crew program on the Demo 2 mission to the International Space Station back in 2020. Also, May 30th of this year marked the 4th anniversary of Falcon 9 launching NASA's Demo 2 mission to the space station and returning human spaceflight to the United States. Since then, Dragon has carried 49 people into orbit. Let's have a look through the launch timeline for the Falcon 9 passing these events following liftoff. I'll be wrapping up it in a quick because we have some stats to discuss after that as we are nearing to the webcast to begin. 10 minutes to go. So at t plus 1 minute and 10 seconds, Falcon 9 will pass through max Q, a point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Then there will be a couple of different events in rapid succession. First will be the first stage main engine cutoff, that is at t plus 2 minutes and 30 seconds, followed by a major milestone within 4 seconds at t plus 2 minutes and 34 seconds, where first and second stage will separate from each other. Just after 7 seconds later, second stage MBAC engine will ignite for the first time during today's flight, that is SES-1, at t plus 2 minutes and 41 seconds. Coming up next at t plus 3 minutes and 5 seconds mark, Falcon 9's payload fairings will be jettisoned. At t plus 6 minutes and 8 seconds, the first stage entry burn will begin, lasting for 23 seconds, up to 6 minutes and 31 seconds mark, ending the entry burn for the first stage. At this time around, we will hear the callouts for stage 1 FTS, that is the flight termination systems, being saved. Now just for a quick knowledge, the stage 1 FTS is saved, or one can say flight termination systems are turned off or disabled after the re-entry burn, whereas the stage 2 FTS is saved after the orbital insertion burn. Next major milestone at t plus 7 minutes and 55 seconds, the first stage landing burn will commence, which will orient and set up the first stage for SpaceX iconic precision landing. At t plus 8 minutes and 18 seconds, the first stage will land on droneship Of Course I Still Love You for 93rd time overall, marking SpaceX 319th overall landing to date. The second stage MBAC engine will shut down, that is SECO-1, and enter into a parking orbit at t plus 8 minutes and 43 seconds. T plus 53 minutes and 13 seconds, the second stage MBAC engine will reignite for a short 1 second burn, that is SES2, and turning it off at T plus 53 minutes and 14 seconds, that is SECO2, which will set up Starlink satellite deployment at approximately T plus 1 hour and 7 seconds. Now, if you are still vibing with us, how about giving this video a like? It really helps YouTube's algorithm catch the drift and bring more space fans and rocket buffs our way. And if you haven't subscribed us, now is the time. We'd be totally amazed to have you on board. Your support really means the world to us. Now, before proceeding, just give us a few seconds to check whether the launch is on time. Yes, it is. So let's move on and quickly step to the stats. This launch marks 356th SpaceX overall launch and 44th dedicated launch of Starlink satellite for this year. This is the 345th Falcon 9 launch to date. This will be the fifth flight of this particular Falcon 9 booster supporting today's mission with tail number 1082. It is the 61st Falcon 9 launch of 2024 so far and is SpaceX 63rd overall launch of this year, including the third and fourth integrated flight test of Starship. We are expecting the next, that is the fifth integrated flight test, probably on end of June or early July. This is SpaceX 290th Falcon booster reflight to date, that is the launch of a booster that has flown at least once before. 80th orbital launch for SpaceX, launching from Space Launch Complex 4 East. And this will be the 147th orbital launch pad, that is Space Launch Complex 4 East here at Vandenberg Space Force Base. With this mission's success, SpaceX will have a remarkable 6,633 Starlink satellite launched to date. Now moving on to some reusability statistics. This launch marks 276th Falcon 9 booster reflight to date. This is the 93rd landing on, of course, I Still Love You droneship. This will be the fifth landing of the first stage booster with tail number 1082. With this mission's first stage landing, which paves the way to 250th overall droneship landing, marking 302nd Falcon 9 landing to date and 319th SpaceX overall landing to date. Let's have a quick look into some key stats for SpaceX launches in this year, including today's mission. So SpaceX has a total of 63 launches. Out of those, 17 were non-Starlink missions and 2 Starship launches. SpaceX reused booster for 59 times in those launches, showing their commitment to sustainability and reusability. Before moving on to the audience, and also especially Team Liz, CJ, is junk and Fairmate, I'm just coming back. Let me finish this because the webcast is about to begin, and then I'm just replying back to you guys. Please don't mind me. Now, if we look into the geographical distribution, we get they have 41 launches from East Coast with 12 from Launch Complex 39A, that is Kennedy Space Center, and 29 from Launch Complex 40, that is from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. On the West Coast, we have 20 launches, all from Space Launch Complex 4 East, that is Vandenberg Space Force Base, including today's one. And there was 2 launches from Gulf Coast of Starbase back in Texas for the Starship 3rd and 4th integrated flight test. Now awaiting the next 5th integrated flight test. As for landings, they have made it 60 times. Most of them were on drone ships, with 47 successful landings, 16 on, of course, I Still Love You, including one from today, 12 on Just Read the Instructions, and 19 on a shortfall of gravitas. And for ground landings, they have pulled off 13, 8 times on landing zone 1, only 1 time on landing zone 2, and 4 times on landing zone 4 respectively. Now moving on to this year's orbital launches, including today's one, we have this pie chart here on our screen. We can see that the United States is dominating with 72 orbital launches, launch comprising a substantial 62.6% of the global total. Recently, other than SpaceX launches, we had Rocket Lab's 49th Electron launch for NASA on Pre-Fire and ICE mission, and the most anticipated launch, that is the Starliner crew flight test from Space Launch Complex 41 at Cape. China follows closely behind, accounting for 24.3% with 28 launches. Russia maintains a steady pace with 8 launches, with a recent Soyuz 2.1A launch of ISS Progress 88, also known as Progress MS-27, cargo resupply mission on May 30th from Baikonur Cosmodrome, making 7% of the pie. While Japan has 3 launches so far, making 2.6% of the pie, both India and Iran have entered the race with 2 launches each, making 1.7% of the pie. This is quite a close competition, but United States and China are undeniably dominating the space race this year. Now let's move on to the final stat we are having here. So now we have this pie chart showing 2024 orbital launches by rocket variations, including today's launch. Now let's have a look and let me break it down for you. We still have nearly 4 minutes from the webcast to begin. The green slice of the pie, that's the Falcon 9 rocket, a real heavy hitter this year, having the biggest share of the pie with 61 launches, making up more than half of the whole pie at 52.6% and leading. Then we got this pink slice labeled Others, which is a mix of different rockets, including Atlas V, Delta IV Heavy, Starship, Vulcan Centaur, ISRO's GSLV Mark II, PSLV-DL, Japan's H3, H2A, Iran's Simorgh and Kayam, Russia's Angara A5, and others. These names are not exhaustive, and I'm not taking all the names here, but they got 23 launches in total, which is 28.4% of the pie, which is quite impressive. Next up, we got the Rocket Lab's Electron with 7 launches, making 6% of the pie. With the upcoming mission, Electron will reach its 50th launch, faster than any commercially developed rocket in history. And also with that, it will be breaking the record for Falcon 9 as well. Also, we have Roscosmos Soyuz 2 rockets with 7 launches so far this year, which is 6% of the pie. Last but not the least, we got China's Long March 2D and Long March 2C, that is CZ2D and CZ2C rockets. So the Long March 2D has 5 launches, making 4.3% of the pie, and Long March 2C has 3 launches with 2.6% of the pie. Smaller slices of the pie, but I like to eat pies. I'm joking. Every launch counts. Anyway, so we have now only 1 minute left for the webcast to begin. Till then, let's have a look at the chat. Nothing to be sorry fair made. It's okay. You can see, although you missed it, it's good. It got scrubbed in the end. So we will be targeting again tomorrow for the Astra 1P, but tomorrow also the weather at Cape will be more worse. So I don't know how SpaceX will be targeting, but as they will be, I have to also stream. And Team Liz, no, I never have seen a SpaceX launch in real, in person. That's a sad thing, but that's true. Hope, and I really wish to watch a live space launch, at least of SpaceX. And I'm happy for you. CJ is junk that you are working at Space Launch Complex 4 East for 26 years. Your dad worked there. That's quite impressive. He was a cool dad, really. Anyways, thanks everyone. You guys tuned in, and let's move on as it's time for the webcast. And again, just I'm saying, don't mind me, that if you are feeling that we are adding value to your viewing experience, please consider giving this video a like, which really helps YouTube's algorithm to bring in more people to find out this stream. Also consider subscribing to us as we strive hard to bring streams filled with stats and details. We would be super grateful for your support.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressing for strong back retract.
And you heard the call out. We are pressurizing the tanks, where we are adding a bit of gas to form up the tanks so that the clamp arms can open with a solid structure holding the Falcon 9. Once the arms are open, we start reclining the strong back about 13 degrees away from Falcon 9. At T-minus 4 minutes and 26 seconds and counting, all systems are go for an on-time liftoff. We are watching the live view of Falcon 9. Couple of important steps we completed. The spacecraft team switched to internal power a few minutes ago, and fueling of Falcon 9 first stage is finished, meaning all the RP-1 prop is on board. We are still loading liquid oxygen on board the first and second stages. The next event is a retraction of the strong back away from the Falcon 9. The strong back is a structure next to Falcon 9 that carries air conditioning, electrical signals, pressurization gases, and propellant to the spacecraft and to the both stages. To prepare for retraction, the clamp arms at the very top of the second stage, just below the payload fairing, will open up, and these are operated hydraulically. You are seeing the clamp arms opening up here underneath the payload fairing. The transport transporter erector reclining at 13 degrees away from Falcon 9. Now less than 3 minutes and 3 minutes you can say away from liftoff. We are currently chilling in the Merlin engines back
Stage
from
1 LOX load is complete.
T minus 7 minutes. And we got the call out right on time. Liquid oxygen loading of the first stage is complete. We are now waiting for second stage that will finish up at just inside T minus 2 minute mark. Now currently we are inside 2 minutes and 32 seconds. The range continues to be green and the weather, of course, as you can see there, has cooperated. We'll be listening in couple of seconds for LOX load closeout on the second stage. If for some reason we do not launch today, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow, that is Thursday, June 19th, with launch window opening at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete. We got the call out. All propellants are now on board the Falcon 9 with 1 million pounds of propellant. We are beginning to vent down the pressure that was in the tubing on the strong back. That's why you can see those clouds coming out there. Next call out will be ground gas closeout.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Right on time, Falcon 9 flight computers on stage 1 who are running the rocket through the last minute of count. Now let's listen to the go callouts.
Go for launch.
SpaceX launch director giving go for the launch. We are coming up on T minus 30 seconds. Nearly all system continues to remain go for launch of Falcon 9 and Starlink.
T minus 30 seconds.
T minus 30 seconds and counting.
T minus 15 seconds. T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of Falcon 9. Go SpaceX. Go direct and south.
Just heard the boom. We have liftoff. Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. We got
Stage 1 chamber pressures are nominal.
We got the call out for stage 1 engine chamber pressure is nominal. 25 seconds into flight, Falcon 9 on its way with 20 Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit. We should be getting call out for power and telemetry. Although today they missed the call out for the ground gas closeout. Don't know why. Now we will be falling into the throttle bucket where we will
Vehicle is supersonic. Power exposure nominal.
We will be throttling down the 9 Merlin engine as we prepare for the period of maximum dynamic stress coming up. We got the call out for vehicle being supersonic. That's where we exceeded Mach 1 on Falcon 9. Also, we got the call out for max Q. We are through the period of maximum stress on the vehicle. We have throttled the Merlin engines back up to full power. Next up, we will be getting a call out for that's I was going to say. Right now, we started to chill down the engine on the second stage prior to its ignition just after stage separation, coming up three events in rapid succession: the shutdown of main engine on first stage, that is main engine cutoff, MECO, followed by stage separation and ignition of second stage MVAC engine, that is SES1, that will boost the payload into low Earth orbit. So let's hear the callouts. And Fairmaid, can you tell me, is your back is good, is better than earlier?
Main engine cut off.
Stage separation confirmed.
Head back ignition.
Spectacular. All the three events on time. We got callouts for MECO, stage separation, also for the second stage ignition. Now the first stage nitrogen thrusters is now beginning to reorient the first stage, and the flight computers has commanded the 4 hypersonic titanium grid fins to slowly begin deploying now that the stage separation is successful. Now the next call out will be fairing separation.
Fairing separation confirmed.
We got call out that the fairing has successfully separated. You are looking right now a view of the first stage, continues under the guidance of grid fins and gravity as it descends back to Earth. It will continue to rise towards the apogee before descending back towards the landing on drone ship, of course I still love you, stationed in Pacific Ocean. Second stage, meanwhile, in the middle of its 6-minute burn, is on its way to the parking orbit. Next, we should be getting a call out for both vehicles being on nominal trajectories. Also, upon re-entry first stage, we should be getting a call out for stage 1 FTS being saved. So far, the launch has been great. The first stage has done its job and it's on its way back. The second stage is running at full power and we are getting amazing views from both the stages. Now we are getting ready for the first stage to return to the drone ship landing site. During this part of the flight, stage 1 relies solely on its grid fins for steering as it returns to Earth. These grid fins orient the Falcon 9 during re-entry and guide the rocket during its descent. Right now, we are viewing the second stage, but occasionally on your left side of your screen, you will see nitrogen gas bursts from first stage for altitude control. These are basically used to position the vehicle as it heads back towards the drone ship. Next up, we will be having a call out for stage 1 entry burn startup. Meanwhile, replying to Fairmaid on chat, I'm glad to hear that. So it's still healing. Okay, but so be careful and take care of yourself so that it will heal sooner. And me, I am still awake. My one-liner answer for all the time. Yesterday night for Astra 1P satellite, I couldn't sleep. They made it to scrub. Now after this, some homeworks are there. So again, it will be for me to go to sleep. It will be at the evening. So sleepless days. Anyways, but I'm happy.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there's the confirmation. We just lit 3 of Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. As you can see now, we are rapidly slowing the vehicle down as it enters the Earth's atmosphere, and this burn should last just around 23 seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And there we go. That's confirmation of shutdown of entry burn on the first stage. Falcon 9 first stage is equipped with 4 landing legs, and those are made out of carbon fiber with an aluminum honeycomb. They are placed symmetrically around the base of the rocket, and they will deploy just prior to the landing.
Stage 1 FTSS saved.
As I said before, we will be getting the stage 1 FTS being saved call out. Now sooner we will be getting stage 2 FTS being saved call out when the stage 2 will be gone through its orbital insertion burn. Also maybe we will be getting a call out for stage 1 being transonic.
Stage 1 transonic.
Stage 2 FTSS saved.
And you just heard that call out. Stage 1 is now traveling slower than the speed of sound as it heads towards landing. Now speaking of landing, we are just about 60 seconds away from that. Next call out we will be expecting is for stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 1 landing burn.
There we go. Great shots of that landing burn with
Stage
that
2
center
terminal guidance.
E9 now lit. We are slowing down the vehicle very rapidly. Should be seeing those landing legs deploy any seconds now.
Landing leg deploy.
Landing legs are deployed. And there you have it.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
We have successfully made the 390th landing of an orbital class rocket. Coming up next, we will have the second stage engine cutoff, that is SECO 1, and following that event, we will enter into nearly 45 minutes of coast phase as the vehicle ascends to its target orbit.
MVAC shutdown.
We got the call out for MVAC shutdown, that is SECO 1. Hopefully they didn't, but it is expected that it would have been got into a nominal orbit insertion, and there are the callouts we were waiting for. Second stage engine cutoff SECO 1 as well as the confirmation of nominal good orbit. Today's landing marks 319th SpaceX overall landing of an orbital class rocket. With this, we will wrap up our coverage for now. Be sure to check out the social media for confirmation of Starlink deployment. We want to thank all of you joining us with today's launch and we hope you all will enjoy the week ahead. Also, we hope that you enjoyed the stream. Once again, thanks for joining us and tuning in. Also, thanks Fairmade that you came and joined us. Also, we would like to thank Oscar, and I'm happy that you could able to see it in person, although I didn't ever till now. Also, thanks for tuning in, Team Liz. CJ is junk, and yes, your dad is cool. So anyways, with that, as we said, we will be wrapping up the stream. Once again, thanks everyone for joining us, showing your such patience, love and understanding, staying till the end. We are glad to have you all with us. This is AstroYonder Live and me, Dipta, signing off for now, and we will see you next time.